Yes. Yes,
That's how I
and
see it.
and I think she unfortunately kind of has this very, um, I would say, kind of polluted mindset for how to get there, as we kind of see with her character as we go through. And I think this is a good time to like talk about like where we start off with Act Three, because we start off and really this is about like understanding what happened when Ekko, Heimerdinger, and Jayce all kind of got brought into this multiverse. So you see like Ekko, he goes to this reality and eventually does meet up with Heimerdinger, so they're all there. And really, kind of what happened in this reality is you have when they do the heist, or like when they're stealing the hex stuff. Um, in this reality, Vi's actually killed, and what I thought was really weird, or I guess just an observation for what happened, with Vi being killed, everything kind of feels better for everybody. And I don't know if that was the intent of the story, but like you see, like Ekko has this, kind of relationship with Jinx. You see Vander and Silco are friends again. Milo and Clank are alive. Benzo's still alive, and Ekko has this, kind of nice moment where they get together and they kind of hug it out. But I thought it was so weird that like it almost felt like the show was trying to tell us that by dying would have been better for these characters. What did you think about that? Did you pick up on that, or like I guess how did you possibly interpret that? I guess idea.
I mean, it kind of reminded me of that South Park special about COVID, where 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 Cartman becomes a Jewish rabbi and everything, is sort of right, but Stan is unhappy. So then when they go back in time to fix the timeline, Cartman ends up being a homeless drunk, and Stan's having a wonderful life. That's what it reminded me of.
Mm.
Is the fact that if you take out one person who was very, very important, you end up having a much better future. But it's not all that great because now Powder doesn't have Vi in her life to look out for her. And even though she does have this extended family around her, even though she's got Vander and Silco and everybody, it's just not the same without her older sister. So you kind of have to wonder, like, which reality is better? Is it the one where Zaun is happy, but everybody kind of understands that they don't have a very important figure in their life, or for Zaun to be this horrible dystopian state, but at least the two sisters have each other?
Yeah. And I would say, like, depending on how you all look at it, I mean, we don't, unfortunately, I think, get a whole lot of, I think, Jinx's mindset in this other reality. I mean, she generally does seem to be happy, though, so, like, how much of that is just, with her, with the Vi dying, did it allow her to maybe come to terms in a different way to kind of deal with her grief? It's just it opened up a lot of, I think, questions. I was like,
but I mean, you remember that one scene where they're at that altar when they're lighting the candles, and Ekko asks her what happens, and all of a sudden Jinx gets very serious, and she's like, that's not even funny. Like, why would you even ask that? So it's definitely is a sore spot, because it's one of those things that, hey, this isn't something that you should just talk about flippantly. Like, come on, like, know your limits.
No, it definitely has an impact with her character. How much of it, I don't think, got really explored in the very short time that we're here, because you kind of have that going on, and then you have Ekko and Heimerdinger, like, they're trying to get back to their own reality, and really in this one, because of the whole debacle in the heist at the beginning, Hex Tech doesn't exist here, right? So Jayce is never, doesn't get it figured out. Like, it's just, it kind of creates this alternate world. So really, they have to kind of start off from scratch. And when they're kind of like building all this stuff, they create this, I don't want to say time machine, because I think that's, not really accurate. it could only take them back a few seconds, but they do kind of create this, and I forget the term that they use. It creates like a little time dilation where they can go back in time. I think it was 3 or 4 seconds before reality starts to kind of disintegrate. But they kind of help create this as they're trying to go back. And this is where, they kind of get everything set up. I definitely like that scene where Ekko and Jinx are kind of there, and you can kind of see it's kind of like what if, right? What if, they're in this situation because they kind of like share this kiss. And it's like, wow, these characters, their situations are very, very different in the world that we know, where the thought wouldn't even cross either of their minds. But in this world, because of how everything happened, they were in some form of relationship. How deep, don't want to get into that because we don't get a lot of that. But kind of interesting to see how different it is for that. And you kind of see Ekko as he's getting sent back to his time. Heimerdinger has to sacrifice himself as his like little head blows up, and is able to send him back. So we have kind of their two arcs coming together, and then we have Jayce on the flip side of thing. We see more about kind of what happened with his character, where he kind of meets the cloak character, right? The cloak character that we know from the first season that kind of started his interest in the idea of magic and everything like that. So he meets this cloak character, and he's pretty much just sitting there and he's exploring this world that is in ruin. And I just, the visuals for this, I just thoroughly enjoyed. And we see there's these kind of like weird humanoid creatures that are there that we don't really know what they are at this stage, but we find out that these are people, right? These humanoid creatures are really people that have, I'm going to use air quotes as well, right? Survived this event.
They're not really people. They kind of morphed into like these weird android kind of.
Correct. Yes. They look very mechanical. I think they're kind of unfortunately like the people that have transcended. I guess their physical body, so to say. It's kind of hard because they don't really go into a lot of detail. But you're correct, right? They're very robot looking. But I think they are indeed actual people that are just there now with nothing to do. And Jayce, kind of comes out of this reality thinking like Hex Tech bad. I need to stop everything. Like this has to be stopped. And I feel very frustrated with that because here's my whole thing. It puts in perspective why Jayce is doing what he's doing, but he doesn't really do it in a rational way, right? I think it's kind of like one of those situations where if you were put into a world where that your creation, right, has destroyed everything, would you feel very sane coming out of that circumstance, right? If you created something, Luca, that would cause the whole world to be eradicated, how would you react for you wanting to resolve that situation so that doesn't have a repeat situation?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask about that.
Right?
And I should be asking you because you're the more sane of the two of us. Really.
Well, I have some doubts about that, but I appreciate that. But it is interesting, right? And like you can understand his just like total his total fixation on wanting to fix things has made him irrational. But it is hard. Like you have to think like he survived there for who knows how long, right? Days, weeks. Like, he had to do something to like fix his leg. Like he's like looking at this world that it's his fault, right? Like he caused this destruction. I couldn't imagine having all that weight of you ending your world because of your creation. So I still very well depicted.
Well, I was gonna say like him being in the pit kind of epitomizes his sense of helplessness, really, because
yes, right.
he is literally unable to crawl out of the hole he has created.
Yes, right. And
So which is perfect because it kind of if you think about it, kind of motivates you to kind of work even harder, try even harder, because he had to basically take apart everything that he's built in order to escape this world, and then go and do what he did.
yes, and I think it also does too. It kind of shows his like him going into that cave or him like falling down is like him losing his grip on his sanity. That's how I really interpreted that, because I mean the weight of you doing something that will cause such a cataclysmic problem is absolutely just, it's mind-numbing to me. I don't know how I would come to grips with that. But I think for an audience, right, I think we're still expecting the character to at least do some rational things to do it. And I mean, he does get better through the last 2 episodes, right? As he kind of gets out of this, he does, kind of regain some of that semblance, but it does still kind of leave this kind of sour taste in your mouth that he didn't really maybe go about this the right way, or a way that made a lot of sense. But I did want to talk about one thing, right? Because we talked about multiverse, and I wanted to talk about this with you. What are your thoughts about the multiverse and how they, I guess, are dealing with it in this show?
I mean, if you want the short answer, I would think it was unnecessary. If you want the long answer,
how much multiverse stuff goes, but yes, I agree
right
with you.
now, if you want the long answer, I think it was nice for us to have seen what might have been or what could have been, right?
Yes.
Because season 1 and most of season 2 kind of plays up the fact that there's a huge divide between Piltover and Zaun. So you kind of so naturally it kind of makes you wonder, what would life have been like had they been able to work things out, had they been able to find a way to coexist. And you do see it very briefly. So I will give, so as much as I dislike that storyline, I will also give them props for kind of scratching that itch that we've had, because it does show us, hey, yes, it is possible for Zaun and Piltover to coexist, and it is possible for the two of them to actually be on good terms and not have to go through the shit that we've seen for the past season or two. But I also felt like in the end it really didn't add much to the whole Hex Tech saga that was trying to build. Because I mean because, well, here's another thing I want to ask. So in the end, are they trying to control, or are they trying to destroy the Wild Rune? That's what I don't get, because my thing is that they well, in this case, Jayce goes forward in time and Ekko and Heimerdinger go somewhere else. Were they trying to figure out a way to kind of destroy the Wild Rune, or kind of harness it to turn to another source of energy? That's what I don't get.
Yeah, for Heimerdinger and Ekko, I didn't think I quite understood what their motivations were. Like, I know they're trying to create something, and I think just it felt like they weren't sure what they created, or they weren't sure exactly how they got there. Whereas I think with Jayce, it's a lot more, I think, straightforward, that he just views Hex Tech as this evil thing. And his want, like we see, as we go into the last part of it, is him wanting to kind of destroy the creation that he's built, because for him, he looks at it like there's no way for us to really, like, if we use Hex Tech, it's ultimately always going to end in the destruction of society. That's how I kind of viewed it as far as Jayce's mindset goes. Ekko and Heimerdinger were a little bit more weird to me. But also to like the multiverse part, because I definitely want to touch on that, because I know we've really ragged on it, especially in all the comic stuff where we've seen the multiverse and it just feels kind of done to death. This, I felt like, regardless of its story importance or how much it should have been in there, I did enjoy this more than what I've seen previously, because it did kind of give us a very interesting glimpse into, not only this alternate reality where we see, like, for a fact that this Hex Tech not being around would lead to, this kind of better society for everybody. But on the flip side of it, we see, Jayce kind of getting the opposite end of that, where he sees, like, the use of Hex Tech, that it's ultimately going to lead to everyone's demise. So very interesting how we see one very positive kind of showing of not having hex tech, where the other one we see the total negative side of things of how hex tech is going to bring the ruin to everything. So I thought that was at least well done, and I like that better than what we've seen in kind of the other stuff that's out.
Mhm.